I wonder which Earth we're on, and when the antimatter wave is going to come and destroy us.
Battle is lost. Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Crisis on Infinite Earths has premiered in the United States of America. The very first episode has been on, and I thought this time I haven't reviewed any Arrowverse stuff before. I've talked about it in other ways. I've talked about trailers and other things, but one thing I've never done is review an episode of the Arrowverse. So I thought, given the absolute breadth of this crossover, this is the Avengers Endgame of the DC TV universe, I couldn't not cover it in some way. Apologies about the sound and the lighting and the situation of where I am. I'm at a meeting room in work, and I'm going with what I want to get this review out as quickly as possible, so that's why I'm using my lunch break to get it done rather than waiting till this evening. So I'm going to try and cover every single episode of the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, which is Supergirl was on last night, Batwoman is on tonight, and then I think it's The Flash, and then there's a Christmas break, and then we get the final two parts in January. Now, for fans of the Arrowverse, this is what it has all been leading up to since 2014 at least, when we were first teased about the Crisis in the very first episode of The Flash, when that newspaper appeared on screen, that newspaper from the future that says Flash goes missing in Crisis, and the date at that point was, I think, another 5 years into the future, 2024 or something like that. Events recently have changed that date, brought it forward, and now we're here at the crossover, the big one. We've had crossovers before, of course, with Arrowverse. The first one just between Flash and Arrow. Then we had Invasion, which it brought in Supergirl as well, and the Legends. Then we had Elseworlds. Crisis on Earth X was first, which kind of first started to hint at these sort of the multiverse being in, a thing. I mean, Flash had already done that, but on a bigger scale. And then we had Elseworlds last year, which really sets up, we had the Monitor, and really sets up the fact that we were going to be having Crisis this year. Now, my aim for these is to keep them spoiler-free, just sort of light little quick reviews, my quick thoughts on the episode without giving anything away, because it's not airing in the UK here for a while. I mean, I've seen it. Some others might have done. But, it's not actually on here yet. Let's just say I flew to America to watch it, and I'm back now, and I'll be flying again tomorrow and the next day to watch all of them. Let's just say that's what's happening. But for those of you that can't watch it, or haven't been able to watch it, I'm going to keep this spoiler free. So if you want just a general feel of my views, but don't want to be spoiled, you're safe here. This is a safe space. I will, however, be assuming everyone's seen the trailer for it, which has been widely distributed online. So I might talk about some things that appeared in the trailer, but no spoilers for any major twists, plot things, even the cameos. While I'm going to talk about the cameos in a broader sense, not going to talk about them in a specific sense, if that makes sense. There's too many senses in that sentence. So it started off with a voiceover from the Monitor, and then we get a quick succession of a load of cameos. And like I say, I'm not going to say what these cameos are, but I very much appreciate them. If you're someone that appreciates DC's history of stuff on TV and film, you will appreciate these two. There's some really nice little cameos in there, just displaying, various different Earths and what's going on in various different Earths. Just little flittery things. And I think that's one of the things this does really well, is that we all want to see those cameos in this crossover. We want this to be... I'm very excited that this crossover has basically canonized loads of stuff into the DC Arrowverse, or Arrow multiverse, as it is now, and that they're all connected in this way that they weren't before. So we know Smallville's going to be coming into it, because we've seen Smallville's Clark and Lois in the trailer. And here we get a few more little ones. They're just really small little things, but they're really nice little touches. And by grouping them all together at the front, it doesn't bog down the rest of the story. And it leaves the rest of the story free to, deal with the characters we know and love, and really focus in on those characters as people and what they're going through as well. it's not just all action, action, action. And that's what I really liked about this, actually, was that it still had time for those nice character moments as well. Now, this was a Supergirl episode, so obviously the focus was on the Supergirl and her supporting characters. That's right, that's exactly what we needed to do here. That's what I'm expecting going forward as well. So I'm expecting, the Flash episode to have a high concentration of Flash supporting characters. Same with the Legends of Tomorrow episode, same with the Batwoman episode. I'm expecting all of these to sort of have, the key players in them and some important stuff going on for those key players. But ultimately, I'm kind of expecting the supporting cast of each of the shows to be mainly in their own show. That's what's happened in previous crossovers, kind of expecting it to happen again here. It's kind of what's happened so far in Supergirl. There was a lot of focus on, although there was some really nice stuff with some of the Arrow. This is a very important episode for Arrow fans as well as Supergirl fans, and there was a lot of good stuff with the supporting cast of Arrow, or at least some of them. Supergirl was also really, the focus of the supporting characters in this. One other thing I really liked about this is it's kind of doing what the original Crisis did in a way, because the original Crisis on Infinite Earths comic, which came out in the 1980s, was focusing on, was created basically to mop up the continuity issues of the decades-long convoluted continuity of the DC Comics. And in a way, they're slightly paying homage to do that by tidying up some of their own little continuity errors or inconsistencies, let's say, that have cropped up over the years. There's, not that many. There's one that's dealt with in particular here. I won't go into details, but it's nice that it had been a thing that kind of gone, that in the past I've gone, oh, well, that time that happened, how does that now make sense? Now it does. They explain that in here. It's quite a nice little thing that they just throw in there to explain those continuity errors. Talking of the original comic, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the Crisis on Infinite Earth comic came out in 1980. Oh God, I can't remember. It came out in the 1980s. I've read it about 10 years ago, so quite a while ago now. No, longer than that. It's probably more like 15 years ago I read it. There's a lot to cover in it. It's a big, thick tome, and that's even forgetting all of the little side spin-off bits that happen in individual books, but the main core storyline is quite dense and quite heavy, and there's a lot going on. And I think they did a really good job here of paring it down, keeping the sort of main thrust of it. In some things, even that I didn't necessarily expect them to keep in, they've kept them in, but they've adapted it in a nice way that kind of fits the Arrowverse universe as we know it, and doesn't feel out of place in that universe. Because obviously there's a lot of stuff that if you directly adapted it from the comics wouldn't make sense in the context of the Arrowverse, because there are characters that haven't been introduced. There are, the whole world situation is very different to how the DC Comics universe was at the start of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I think they've done a really good job of adapting that to fit the Arrowverse, but still feeling very much like a true adaptation of the original comic, which is a very clever thing to do. The one thing that feels a little bit odd for me is how they've repurposed some Arrowverse characters, some original Arrowverse characters, into the roles and the names of characters that existed in the comic. Those feel a little bit off because, we know those characters. Less so Nash, but we know them, and so putting them into pre-established roles from the original story kind of feels a little bit strange. But I'm willing to see how it goes for the rest of the thing. There was some really good character stuff in this, particularly for Kara, for Superman, for Kal-El, Clark, whatever you want to call him, and for Oliver as well. I'd say those are the main three that get some really good character moments in this. And what I like about this episode is that it isn't all action, action, action all the time. And it isn't, they leave space for those character moments, which is definitely very good. I think that also benefits from keeping the cast small as well, because they haven't gone all in with all the characters like they could have done for this episode. So not all of the legends are there in this episode, the Legends of Tomorrow. And some of the other supporting cast aren't there. Some of the other people I'm expecting them to bring in later aren't there at this point. I think that was a good choice for the first episode, keeping it small allows them to sort of focus on those character sort of stories as well. So I'm quite glad that they did that. You can also start to see them setting up some spin-offs, which is great because they've got some other shows planned which they're going to be launching in the next couple of years, and you can see the sort of seeds of those being planted as well, so that's quite nice. Anything else I want to say about it? Another slightly negative for this one is, for this episode specifically, is that we didn't get to see much of Oliver and Barry on screen together, which I really would have liked because they are such a great team. They've got such great friendship chemistry between them, and every time they're on screen together, right from that very first crossover years ago, back in 2014 or whenever it was, they've just had great chemistry together, and last year's Elseworlds crossover was brilliant because of that. And because they are the first two shows of the Arrowverse, it would have been nice to have a bit more between them, but Barry was a little bit sidelined in this, he didn't get that much screen time. So, and consequently, we didn't get to see much of him and Oliver. While Oliver got a lot of screen time, it wasn't much with Barry. So it would have been nice to see a bit more of that as well. But that's really the only sort of major negatives that I have about it. It was overall a very strong start to this crossover. I'm very much looking forward to the rest of it. Now, if you've seen it, let me know what you thought in the comments below. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. I will be back, hopefully tomorrow, to review the Batwoman episode of this crossover. Thank you for watching, and I'll try and do something about the lighting and the sound for tomorrow. See you soon. Goodbye.